Jason, Blair, and I have known each other for probably over 20 years. We actually worked for the same company back in the day. And Jason has been part of my leadership journey and has watched me evolve. And when we started talking about inviting men to come and speak at the Women of LBM conference, he was actually one of the first ones that came to my mind. And the reason why is I remember even 20 years ago when Jason was running a lumber yard, he had women forklift drivers, women CDL drivers, women that worked in the warehouse. And at that time, he had a predominantly female staff, just like Daniel at Friendsco does today. And at that time, it was unheard of. And one of my favorite things about Jason is that he has always been gender blind, and I am honored and privileged to call him a friend. So please join me in welcoming Jason Blair, CEO of TAL, to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Sometimes a certain smell will take me back to. Well, Christy, let's see here, in the right direction. I used one of your least favorite words, so now I have a lack of confidence up here. I do struggle with confidence. I will say that. As I prepared for this speech, when Dina reached out to me, it was very intimidating, right? I had to think back in my career, what have I done that would lead to this point where she would want to reach out to me? We've known each other obviously for a long time, and it all comes down to, as I reflected, this story that she referred to, that actually Bill Moore is in the room, and I met him for the first time at lunch today, but back in early 2000s, he sold a store in this little town of Elizabeth, Colorado, to Foxford Galbraith, and I had the opportunity to go up there and run this yard. It's a small yard, a bedroom community of Denver, and in that early 2000s, the Denver community just exploded. And so we were in the right place at the right time. We took this business from $1.5 million to $8 million in a very short window, very short, in less than 12 months. And so being in this small bedroom community of Denver, my employee base were primarily females. And so I'm one of the things about me is I'm a terrible name person. So if I meet you and forget your name, I apologize now. It's just who I am. But I was reflecting, and I remember the names of the women that worked at that store. At one point we had 18 employees, and 12 of them were women. So I remember Marla that drove the truck, and Belinda that pulled loads, and Sarah that worked in the warehouse, and Johnny who was sales support, and Desiree who was our millwork specialist, and Terry who was a bookkeeper, and on and on and on, and those names have stuck with me for my entire career. It took me a long time to realize the impact that had on me as a leader. Even more so, just in the last month getting ready for this, I was thinking back to how impactful that experience was for the rest of my career. And it did create those words that Dina used where I've become gender blind. I would not have thought of it, calling it that, until she shared that with me a couple weeks ago. But I do reflect back and have been very fortunate that I've had some great women help me and support me in my career. So I love to talk about company culture. And the cornerstone of the culture that I like to talk about is a book called The Oz Principle. And so this isn't a sales pitch for the Oz Principle, but the Oz Principle is a cornerstone of who I am as a leader. And so what I did was I was thinking, how do I share something important with you that I'm comfortable talking about, i.e. the Oz Principle, and we'll pull a tidbit out of it that I think really rides really well along with what Christy just talked about. I'm going to rephrase some of the same things that she talked about today. There's a nice overlap between the two presentations, and I had not ever seen her, so that's great. So the Oz Principle is a great book. It has lots of concepts in it. We as a company utilize a few of the formal and informal methods that are in the book. There's a focus feedback tool that they cover in the book. There's storytelling. There's informal culture-changing conversations. We use lots of those pieces and parts of the book. There's even more to the book than that. Those are the parts we use. I'm only going to cover just a small piece of it today. But if any of you ever want to have a conversation about it, I kind of geek out over it. I love it. It's very important to who I am. We leverage it at Tao. So the premise behind this book is, obviously, we all understand that the people create your organizational culture. It's so important within an organization to have the right kind of culture. The organizational drives the results of your company. It's the way it works. If you have a great culture, you're going to get great results. Look at this, landing $44 million in business. I was wondering if you want to come work in the Pacific Northwest. That's awesome. A culture of accountability, which is the premise of this book, is a very effective culture. It's very effective. And accelerating a transition to a culture of accountability sets you apart from your competition. It sets you apart from not only the competitive landscape of who you're selling against, but also the talent you're trying to attract. So at Tao, let me tell you a little bit about Tao real quick, because I skipped over that. So like many of you, I've been in this industry my entire career. I started when I went to college at 18 at Payless Cashways in Arizona. I worked on both the retail side in big retail facilities. I worked in lumber yards. I ran trust plants. I've also spent time on the wholesale side. I spent 6 years at True Value, and then came back to the dark side, or not dark side, I'm not sure which, but to the retail side a few years ago. So came to this company, Tao Building Centers. We just updated our name to that. When I started a couple of years ago, we had 15 locations. We now have 32. We had 230 employees when I started. We now have 670. I'm proud to say that we bucked the trend. We have 25% of our total employee base are women. We are very in that piece side. And 45% of my leadership team, so the 18 people that we consider our leadership team, 45% of those women are women, 45%. So almost half of that group. And then a third of my executive team are women. So we buck the trend, and I believe some of the things I'll talk about support that. So at Tao, this is out of the book, a culture of accountability means a workplace culture where we take accountability to think and act in a manner to drive and achieve key results. And I'm sharing this as a foundation for the future of this, but we really think in a way that we take accountability for our actions, for the things that we do, for the people that we support. And by doing that, by being accountable, we create an environment that allows everyone to be successful. Not just women, not just men, but everyone to be successful. When I do we do some new employee orientation stuff and some specifically new leader orientation. When I teach this, it's a little longer presentation. This is one of my favorite slides, because I do ask everyone that goes through this training at Tao to make a personal choice, to rise above their own circumstances and demonstrate the ownership to achieve key results. And then it talks about this see it, own it, solve it, do it. And see it, own it, solve it, do it is part of the book. It refers to, there's a whole training that goes along with it. But living in a world of accountability really is a personal choice, right? Supporting women in this industry, the successful women, is a personal choice. Hey, I grew up in the same environment that Dina talked about, right? Part of me as a leader, or especially early on, when I first met Dina, she led like a man, 100%. We butted heads. What was that? You were a ball buster. Yeah, she was in a sales role. I was trying to run an operation. I was trying to sell. We were trying to team up and sell in the same market. We were both hard-headed, type A, driven personalities. And you know what? But I have been fortunate to watch her career and be a part of it, and she's changed tremendously and leads very differently today. And kudos to you. But yeah, it's been fun. So speaking of that, speaking of that experience that I had, this is the part from the Oz principle that I want to focus on today, that I want to key in on. And that's this idea that's called the results pyramid. You could call it whatever you want, and I think it's very applicable to all parts of our lives. But the results pyramid is something I'm passionate about. And that is that in our lives, we all have experiences. We've had experiences since we were little kids. We have experiences throughout, whether that is the church you went to. Did you go to public or private school? What flavor ice cream did your parents like best as you were growing up, right? What professional sports team do you love? I grew up in a Chevy household. My son now likes Fords. It's really weird to me, right? I can't convince him otherwise. But all those experiences and all those experiences at work, they drive our beliefs. And I contend that you can't change someone's belief by just walking up to them, like my son, and saying, hey, you shouldn't like Ford, you should really like Chevys, right? I can't just make him change his beliefs. You have to provide people different experiences to change their beliefs. And if we want women to be an important part of this industry, we have to provide them the experience that will help them believe that they can be successful. And for the men in the room, you need to open your eyes and look and see those experiences and also believe that women can be successful, become gender blind like I'm fortunate to have happened, right? That story that I shared earlier, that experience that I had in this tiny town of Elizabeth, Colorado, and having 12 women out of 18, like thinking back, it was crazy. It was crazy times. Can you imagine in 2000 taking a lumberyard, 5 acres of dirt, the only facility I've ever worked at in my life that had a dirt floor inside. It was tough. Bill's laughing. It was a tough facility, right, to function in. Right, we quadrupled the size at that time, right, and obviously the cost of wood was a whole lot less expensive. It was a lot of sticks, and it took every effort in the world. So what did I experience? The two best load builders I've ever had in my career were Sarah and Belinda, the two women that pulled loads for me out there. They were absolutely incredible. They never complained. They didn't care if it was snowing or raining outside. And you know what? And it was like this little competition between the two of them to see who could be better, faster, and all those things, right? And right, the other thing that happened in that environment is the whole entire staff began to have this experience that they believed anyone in the organization, anyone in that facility could help them out. Later down the road, we consolidated with the Castle Rock location, which is about 20 miles away, and it was the opposite. It was ran by a very old school lumber guy, and his staff reflected that. And it was this really challenging cultural time when I was like, well, what do you mean you don't have any women drivers and you don't have any women working in the yard? Like, why do they all only work behind the desk or in accounting? Like, that's not okay with me. So it's been interesting. But those beliefs that you and I have and your employees have lead to their actions. And those actions lead to results. Right? So what I ask my leaders to do as we go through this is if we're not getting the results that we want, if we're not getting the sales results, we're not getting the quantity of quotes, we're not getting we're not getting the audit performance, whatever that might be, I ask them to take a step back and look a little further backwards in that pyramid and figure out where things broke. Something broke somewhere along the way, right? If they don't believe that what you're asking them to do is correct, then we need to think about the experience we're providing them. If they're not taking the actions, right, are we being clear about what we want there? Are the beliefs accurate? And if we're not getting the results right, clearly, we're probably not taking the correct actions. So I'll come back to this at the end, but experiences like the one I just shared drive to beliefs. Those beliefs have driven me in my career. Those beliefs, right, have led to what I believe is an unconscious bias that I don't really care who's sitting across the desk from me. I just want them to be able to do the job. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. I don't at all. Like, I don't think I've ever consciously thought about that until I prepped for this, but I do believe that that's the case. And the experience that the team around me has is along those same lines, right? So I've influenced them unintentionally. And I believe that the mix of employees that we have at Tao are a reflection of that we all believe that anyone in the organization can be successful. Christy, I'm going to change this word somehow. my confidence was dwindling over there. As you said, I hate empowerment like 50 times. Creating meaningful experiences, right? So I was really wishing that like it was one of those where I could like, as a CEO, like one of the great things is I can change the presentation on the fly most of the times. Like I was really wishing I could have changed it over there, but it was too late. So when I was getting ready for this, I reached out to a dozen women who were influential in my career. I had to have spent 15 hours on the phone getting ready for a 20-minute presentation because I didn't want to mess it up. Because it was an interesting responsibility as a male in a male-dominated world to stand up here and talk about how can we be more supportive. I wanted to understand. Throughout my career, where had I done it right and where had I not, right? Because there's definitely both, right? There's definitely both of those. And all those experiences have led to the leader that I am today. And so I'm just going to put all of these up here because I have some stories to share with each of those. And one of the things that we talk about in the training of the Oz principle at Tao is experience types. And so one of the things I like my leaders to think about is what is the ideal outcome of the experience I'm about to provide. So before we even start to provide an experience, what are we about to provide? And we like to focus on a type 1 experience, which is an experience that leaves little doubt as to what the intent was behind it, right? There's plenty of definitions around that. There's 4 primary experience types in the normal, we do any research out there, but a type 1 experience. So, when I think about that, when I think about, this second bullet point of positioning women to have a voice, and I believe, Christy, you touched on that as well, and it's something that's important. I have 2 examples of that in my career recently. One is Erin Doring, who is my director of HR. When I started with Tao, and I had my first probably few months of meetings, I noticed that she was really quiet. There were 4 guys and 1 female in the room, and if she spoke, it was always last, and it was typically like poorly timed. Like I think she was so intimidated by what was going on, and she's in her mid-30s, and there's a bunch of old pasty white guys, or what was it? Whatever the heck it was said earlier. My team looked like that at the time. It is what it is. And so, Russ, is that what you said? Pale, stale, and yeah, all those things, right? There is a lot of truth to it. And so as we started doing one-on-ones, I figured out that really quickly that our one-on-one quickly became a mentorship more than it was a one-on-one, and we had some really hard conversation. And during that conversation, when I'm asking and prodding, like, why are you not providing? Why are you not, like, you're an executive. You need to be a part of the team. I start to realize that it wasn't her that wasn't trying to be a part of the team. It was these 4 type A personality men in the room were not allowing her the space to be a part of the team. So what I did to create a different experience for her, and I told her I was going to do this, is that when I would tee something up as a leader to talk about, I would intentionally ask for her opinion first. So I wouldn't let the rest of the team talk. I would say, hey, Erin, can you provide us some feedback on that topic? And I did that a few times, and it was awkward and a little bit uncomfortable, and the team could tell I was doing something different. But here we are a year later, and Erin is a completely different person. She speaks up at every one of our executive team. She's aggressive, like in a good way when she needs to be aggressive, and is passionate and will really defend her position if that's what she needs to do. She brings an awesome female perspective to some of the things that we need sometimes as guys. Like, we're still male dominated from an executive team. So we sometimes get caught in this bubble. We have biases. And so she has done this. So it's a great success story of providing somebody the voice and the space, and be intent about it. Provide them an experience. And you know what? Today, she believes something totally different. When her and I spoke about this, we talked very much about that. We had she's a very stoic person. I mean, she had some very tearful conversations in my office, which is not who she is. And I made sure she was okay with me sharing that because, Yeah, it changed. And you know what? It changed my team for the good. We are a better executive team because of the more powerful role that she plays, the more equitable role that she plays on my team. The other one is this reoccurring experience. I'm going to speak to the vendors in the room. I'm assuming there's some vendors in the room. I hope there are. You guys are sometimes the worst. The worst, right? And so here's what happened. So Renee Kaufman, she's my director of vendor relations. Renee and I have been to, 6 or 8 shows together since I've been with Tao. And when you go to do a best show, right? I have a name tag on that has my name. It doesn't have my title on it. It has my name on it. Renee and I walked the show together. And without doubt, every single time, whether the vendor is a man or a woman, comes up to me and starts talking to me. Renee is standing right next to me. And I politely, after this happened a few times, I figured I was going, I politely tell them, hey, I'm just tagging along. I don't have any POs is usually my line because no one will give me a PO, rightfully so. And hey, I explain who Renee is and what her role is and that she's going to make the decisions or and I'm going to help and support her. And this just happened just at the last two Best Show. I had to remind the person that we were talking to 4 times. Finally, the 5th time, I just left the booth. And it was a really important thing for us that we needed to get done as a group. And it was a new product line we needed to add to the Friday Harbor location. You guys have all seen the press release around. We needed to add clothing. And I was so pissed at this guy. I was like, you are talking to the wrong person. You are not, I'm an influencer, not a decision maker when it comes to product, right? It's not my job. My job's to lead the company, not pick the product out. Someone else needs to do that. And she's really good at it. Right? And so from a vendor perspective, I would encourage you to think about when somebody comes up to your booth, like I think this happened, we were talking about women walking in the store and everybody avoiding them. I've witnessed that and probably done that in my career. And so, I'm being honest, right? So think about that. Be sure that, and if you're the leader and you have that same experience, Renee and I we joke about it now because she knows what's going to happen. And it's almost like a game to us as to how long before I have to explain to somebody to stop talking to me and talk to her. But you know what? She feels more empowered. She knows that I believe in her, right? She knows that I support her. She knows that experience I provide to her. And heck, I hope that there's some influence over those vendors because the vendor community looks just like the rest of the LBM space. Help women build their authentic leadership brand. I stole a little bit of that from Dina. She brought those words up when we were talking, and so I was reflecting back on that, and Christy touched on this too. And Dina talked about being trained by a pack of wolves, or I think is what it was. But I think about the women in my career that I worked with that were challenging to work with, led like men, instead of leading like the woman they can be. So when I worked at True Value, I had a wonderful woman that I worked with. Her name was Faye Perry, and I was thinking about what made Faye such a great leader. Right? I ran this huge part of the company. I had this national accounts division. And I lived in Texas, and she ran the support team for that group in Chicago. And it was really important that she could carry that torch because I was out in the field all the time with my sales team. And you know what it was? Is that she led like the person that she was. She was a nurturing, big-hearted, loving woman. And that's how she led. And you know what? She could get anything done in that building because that's how she led. Because she wasn't fake. She didn't have to be aggressive, right? She had developed her own authentic leadership brand. And it's awesome. And she's still there today, and I talked with her a bit about this, and I don't know if she realized that that's how she is as a leader, but she is. So encourage women to be their own leader. In this industry, I'm reflecting back that I'm sure I have unintentionally tried to tell somebody to lead the way I was taught to lead. I was taught to lead by other men. I've been fortunately to be influenced by some great women, but be very mindful about that. Again, that experience that you're providing will help them believe to be a different leader, and you're going to get different results. And if you have women that lead like men, guys, you got to have that conversation with them. And then I get the conversation Chrissy talked about. I will tell you that I am not afraid to talk about all those things because I believe, through my experiences, I believe if I'm bold about it, like it changes women. When a male says, hey, like put your stuff back in and you know what, do this and do that, and you know what, it's impactful because it doesn't always have to come from another female. On that token, I thought it was interesting, and this came up just a minute ago, 6 of the 12 women that I spoke with told me that their biggest obstacle to success in this industry was another woman. And I did not expect to hear that. Like I was a bit blindsided. It was the second person I talked to, so I probably probed for it a little bit in the further conversations, but it came up over and over and over again. So the women in the room, think about the experience you're providing, right? Are you providing an experience that's going to help those other women around you believe? This whole idea of mentorship, right? Young women need both men and women mentors. I love being a mentor. I love having mentors. I have my share personally. I do have one lingering, what I would call a little more formal mentorship that I'm doing right now. But I love the idea of informal because I think it's more productive personally. The really formal stuff I've done in my career, my belief would be it's not great because my experience hasn't been great. So, because I think you have to try too hard. But there's a lady named Erica who is the manager of the inventory replenishment team for Wilco Farm Stores, which is where I came from before I went to Tao. Wilco's a big company, $300+ million retail. She manages a team of 6 people, and they replenish for all of that business. It's all done centrally. It's a big job. It's a big responsibility. And when I was at Wilco, the months leading up to me leaving, there became an opportunity for her to be promoted. And of the executive team, I was the only one that believed that she should be promoted. Like, I truly believed in her. And it took a lot of convincing on my part to convince my executive team and to convince her that she would be successful in her role. And when I was talking with her, she told me the other day, that last line is from her, and that was that I believed in her more than she believed in herself. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? And you think in that experience pyramid, or in the providing the right experience in that case was me believing in her. So my experiences with her led me to believe that she could be successful. She was a diamond in the rough. She had a lot of work to do. She didn't play well with other women. I had to deal with that. Right? She just didn't. It is what it is. You know what? She has no confidence at all. I had to deal with that. I worked on all those things, and I am so happy to say I still get to mentor her on a monthly basis, and she's very successful at Wilco. I've had 2 of the executive team, not provoked on my part, reach out to me and say, hey, you were right. She's awesome. She's a rock star. Thank you for promoting her before you left. And so that was one of the hardest conversations I've had. Hey, I just promoted you 30 days ago and now I'm leaving. And so it was, but I committed to sticking around with her, and I have. So, providing those experiences to help women believe is so important. So again, think about those experiences that you provide, whether it's formally at work, whether it's at an outside work event. I love that idea of having diverse outside of the office experiences where you're not creating something that can't include everyone in today's world. Right? It's very important. That will set up a world. If you want your organization to look more like our population, your organization needs to look like our population, right? We attract more women to Tao, I believe, particularly at our home office, because we look like the population. I didn't do the math on that. We probably have more women than men in our 40 or so people that work in the Tao office. But it's a comfortable space, right? And our locations are comfortable spaces. We want them to be. We want them to look like who we want to be long term. Because those experiences, those beliefs, those actions are going to drive you to the results, whether that is having a more balanced workforce or whether that's driving and growing sales, which is why we're all right here primarily, but through mentoring through that.